Everything cannot be defined by limited number of words. If you end up making a person look like a person and call it a creature, it can be called creature, but the whole thing is a creature is a different idea.
We better start this over again. What's the one? You have in Glasgow, and you have the woman is in
Birmingham.
We're going to start this again. Hello, this is Wazwa X Wazwa coming to you from Baroda. And today I am sitting with a very important artist, a sculptor who has works in Birmingham in the UK and in Glasgow in Scotland. He's exceedingly well known, one Mr. Dhruva Kumar Mistry. Do you like Dhruva Kumar or do you like Dhruva?
I think I am Dhruva Mistry.
You're Dhruva Mistry?
Yes. And Dhruva Kumar is because of the Facebook people, there must be too many names conflicting with one another. So they made me add this,
Okay. Is Kumar actually part of your name?
Kumar means a boy.
Yeah.
Kumari means girl or princess or virgin or virgin girl. Or
oh, I thought a Kumar was a potter.
No, Kumbhar.
Oh, that's a different type of Kumar.
Kumbhar means a potter.
Okay.
But Kumar means a boy.
Okay.
And Kumari means girl. Just to sort of distinguish a name.
Well, we've been Facebook
gender,
friends for many years. And today I'm in your home, and we're going to give a little tour of the studio as well, which is quite incredible, and the home is incredible. But I want to ask you a little bit about your career. I know you were influenced by Anthony Caro. So do you want to talk a little bit how you got into sculpture and your initial excitement about creating sculpture?
I'm not influenced by Anthony Caro, but I liked him, and I met him a few times, and he was very kind to me, and I learned something from him. I also learned, I always learn everything from people who know things as well as people who don't know things, because people who don't know many things, they can also teach you a lot of things you still don't know about, and then you also come to know that how much they don't know about things, So from in terms of learning, I learned lots of things from lots of sculptors, whether they are classical, whether they are modern, they are early 20th century or Renaissance or Baroque or whoever, and also learned lots of things from Indian sculptors, whether it be Ram Kinkar or Himmat Shah or other people, and my teachers, Krishna Chatpal, my mentor.
Where did you study?
I studied art in Baroda.
In Baroda,
yes.
Faculty of Fine Arts.
Faculty of Fine Arts, yes.
Okay.
And from 74 till 1981.
So how did the UK connection come about? Because you were based in the UK for a while too, correct?
Soon after I finished my MA here, I was lucky to have received the British Council scholarship. So I went there for a year. Then after a year, my professor in the Royal College asked me why wasn't I working. I said, if I work for another degree, it was not possible because the course was for 3 years over there, and I had done my MA here. So I said I would be overqualified in India to do anything in future. So I'm not bothered about that. I was interested in roaming around London, seeing Europe, and see things that I should see before I go back to India. So then Philip King, who was head of the sculpture then, told me that if that's the case, they would recommend my extension so that I would have 1 year to wander around and 1 year to work. And that happened, and they were helpful.
You have a beautiful home. How long have you lived here in this place?
Since 97.
Since 97?
when we returned from UK. Yeah.
And did you build it yourself?
Yes, it was built without a contractor. It was built with my brother helped me build it for me.
And it was your design?
No, it's designed by Nadir Tharani, an architect friend of mine.
Okay.
He's of Indian origin. He's from Kutch originally. His mother was.
Well, let's get back to your sculpture. So whenever I think of Dhruva Mystery, I always think of your stainless steel sculpture. Most of the time, well, like this one next to us here, which is, what is the name of this sculpture?
I call it Doodle Dome.
Doodle Dum.
Bit like this is bit like Kingdom. Like Kingdom, this is Doodle Dome.
It's very much an octopus to me.
It is an octopus.
Can I think of it as an octopus?
It is more like an octopus of a kind where we can only sort of, what you say, disdainfully tolerate development. So there are things in it which actually are, say, quite destructive to environment. Then there is something about violence. Then there is something about development using the diggers and things like that. And then there is a horse leg. Then there are bits of octopus. Then there are human legs.
Oh, I see the horse leg
Yes,
here.
yes.
This is the hoof of the horse.
Yes.
But this is
And
very
then-
much an octopus
Then there is
tentacle.
also very fairly crude.
So it's only
crude kind of
superficially an octopus.
Sort of, you know. But anyway, it is my interest is to make things which are structurally sound enough to stand on their own. So the scale is relative. I work with the ideas of making freestanding entities in space, which you can wander around, walk about, look at, think about things. And the interest of that kind means that the scale is given on the basis to them, given on the basis of what I can begin with. So I work with thinner sheets of metal, like 1.5 mm to 2 mm, 3 mm, 4 mm.
But normally your stainless steel sculptures are painted very colorfully.
Yes.
So do you plan to also paint this in the future?
This one actually I keep a few pieces without paint so that I can study them, because I constantly, each and every piece is made in order to improve upon the faults that I see or the mistakes which are committed, sometimes inadvertently, sometimes knowingly, that when I'm, say, working with other people, if they end up making a mistake, and which is not worth rectifying it right there, and then.
I notice that you always
I work like that.
You always do preliminary sketches.
Yes.
Correct? In charcoal, I think you do preliminary.
Pencil or anything, or the drawings that I make to work with steel are usually done with using AutoCAD.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then I can give them actual scale and everything, and then.
I've always liked
And
the drawings. I don't know why I love the drawings of sculptors,
Yeah.
and I like the prints. I have a Henry Moore etching in aquatint, which is very precious to
Yes.
me, and I always find that many times, like even N.N. Rimzen, I like his drawings a lot. I like his drawings better than his sculptures actually many times, which I know is very odd, but I'm attracted to the drawings of sculptors many times, and I'm not quite sure. Maybe because they have this sense of form more in their mind or something.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
the drawing, the need to draw is to actually try and give myself a kind of visual backup for something which I am searching to make or seeking to make in immediate future or future, or noting down things. And the way I work now is actually extremely precise, because if I make mistakes, it is if you waste a piece of paper when you draw on it, it's one thing. But if you actually end up wasting a whole sheet of metal, it's too
It's very
expensive. Too expensive for the whole process and everything, and it's also waste of resources.
When you cut the metal, I think now you're using some laser technologies, but in the past, were you cutting it with a regular grinding saw, or how were you cutting?
No, I began. I thought of using stainless steel purely because I think it's less tedious than bronze. It's much stronger than bronze, and it's much safer and better than bronze, and it's also cheaper than bronze. So that's what interested me. I'm not actually a metal sort of sculptor who exclusively works with metal. But then after having been here since '97, I decided to give it a go and find everything about it which should interest me and should sustain my interest. So in '95, when Wilfred Kaas from the Kaas Sculpture in UK, Kaas Foundation contacted me and facilitated for me to make a work. I actually instead they could have supported any work in any material, but then I preferred to work with metal then. Then we found a fabricator. Then we worked with ideas, and I actually also liked the geometry. So the work I made, I called it About the Object. So it's like whether people confirm something about sculpture or deny it, they do end up making an object. Even if they pick something up, it is their choice of an object, whether it be Duchamp or whoever else, whether it be any artist like that, or a tribal person, whoever, but the moment they pick up something and they call it their own.
I have a question, because some of the first sculptures of yours that I became aware of were, of course, your reclining nudes, and I had brought up Moore before. Were those homages to Henry Moore? Did you feel they were inspired by Henry Moore, or was it just your own passion to do that?
My true interest is not Henry Moore. For that matter, all the artists I like some things about them, but some things about them, what I like, can sift through in my work, wherever and whenever it does. But if I use a title like Reclining Woman, it is in order to actually recall the whole idea of what we call recline in terms of art, and what actually has happened in terms of reclining images or whatever. So it is to sort of build give and offer a certain reference, and it is also that like the image over there, which it's called Recline. Main thing is that it is much more easier. It's like a horizontal format is much more easier to the eye and much more stabler as opposed to something standing up.
I think, you are also, to me, obviously influenced by Anthony Caro,
Yes.
who worked with steel also, and flat planes, and putting flat planes together to make a three-dimensional sculpture. I see that very strongly.
Yes.
But an interesting thing about you seem very concerned with negative space many times. You've done a lot of sculptures, such as that running woman, I think it is. You've got that negative space in there, and you've done negative space sculptures that belong hanging on the wall, I believe.
Yeah.
You want to talk about your use of negative space?
When I made that object for Kaas Foundation, which is now with the Milton Keynes City Art Gallery and Museum, it's in front of them, their place. I wanted to make an object. I wanted to confirm the meaning of sculpture for me. And by doing that, for me, the whole idea of it is that it should be something which compels you to look at it from not just all around, but in every possible way. And even then, it should still hold your attention. It should not sort of bore you.
Right.
Every time, it's like in my house, I never get bored. I never feel that I should go out and do something,
But then I wonder, I mean,
in the same way, the
agree
work
with
is
you.
like that. Work is like that for me.
I agree with you totally, because sculpture is meant to be seen in the round, and you should be able to put it in the middle of a floor and walk around it and experience the sculpture as a totality. But then how does that fit when sculptors create works that are meant to hang on the wall? Because then it does become sort of a two-dimensional object.
It is.
So is it still a sculpture at that point, or is it a wall relief?
Yes, it has a limited sort of volume, the way I have made relief. Relief has interested me because of drawing and painting. I like two-dimensional aspect and images very much. But at the same time, it is my interest in two-dimensional images which actually feeds so much of my three-dimensional concepts, It's like this, when everything I draw about a piece like Doodle Dome would be in two-dimensional form, because that is the way I would draw, that is the way the metal will be cut, and that is the way everything else will be. So in my mind composes everything, and I have to keep making measurements work together so that nothing is out of the way and nothing should be touched by me in terms of grinding away something and cutting it and making what do you say decisions on the spot. No, just throw this away, cut this, I don't like this, discard that. No, nothing like that. One thing which is whatever is in my mind must be pursued until the end.
You like the physical process of making, right? You are you very hands-on, or do you have a lot of assistants and people helping you now?
I actually, one thing I didn't quite like in UK was the whole idea of to be successful you need to run a workshop you need a mini factory, you need more than several people, and then you run a business. I thought I wasn't interested in really running a business of that kind of success. What I know and what I can do is much more important than me truly doing it, because I know some people, once you really have a setup like that, you are constantly driven to find works and job, so that you can take care of your staff and run the infrastructure necessary, and I don't know, all the expenses.
If there are actually art schools now that look down upon students who are physically involved in their work. They want to see students conceptualize and hire other people to do it. That's become so common.
It is a sign of a changing world. But the whole thing is, if it can sustain their interest, if it can sustain their own life by doing exactly what they want to do, great. And if they can't, and if they don't, well, they will have to rethink.
Well, I can see both, and obviously I myself, I work with RVJ and Dalpat and people, who work with me, Rajesh Soni. But it's like I'm very hands-on. I'm always hovering around and making sure things go the way I want them to go. And but I think there is something very sad about the fact that there's this de-skilling going on, and artists, students are coming out of the art schools and they're not proficient at skill anymore, many of them, which is sad.
Well, skill is like a tool, it's like it is all, the skill is something that, well, the basic skill maybe is everybody's endowed with certain amount of skill. Now, how you hone it would make it sharper enough for you to achieve the kind of result you need. It's like a chisel sharpened for working with wood would be very different than the kind of chisel that you necessarily use for stone. And depending on the kind of stone, and depending on also the kind of cut and work that you expect the chisel and hammer to do. And in the same way, everything else is relative to your needs. So skill is an important thing, but it is one of the things necessary. if anyone who say cares just only for taste, they would also need to care for nutrition. They will also need to care for other things which are other than just few things which you can note, that you can call that this is it, When everything cannot be defined by limited number of words. I think there are things that you need to see them wholly together enough to make sure that it is an object of not mere desire, but it is an ultimate object of ongoing and everlasting engagement.
Let's talk just a bit about the other things that come to mind when I think about your work that I love so much. Are your women with wings? They're bird-like women. What do those represent? Do you want to talk about that at all? You've done a few of those, I know.
In 1984, when I was artist in residence in Cambridge, I worked on a set of images which interested me, because after having made sculptures which resemble humans, I wanted to see that how creature, it's like sometimes we refer to people as creatures, but now how would you define, if you end up making a person look like a person and call it a creature, it can be called creature, but the whole thing is a creature is a different idea. Yeah. So I just turned, I like that idea, and in that sense, the idea of little bird or creature and other things interested me. And when in Cambridge, I liked the images which actually were supernatural.
I was going to say mythological. They seem mythological.
Mythological enough to actually create a sort of sense of stance and power. And they can exert certain strength and power. And when I was working there, it was really a very cold, dank space in the middle of a large garden, which was rarely visited by lots of people. Although there were lots of students there, not many people ever came there except few. And it was my first experience of working on my own in a space of my own for 1 year. And there was also the arrangement of having an exhibition of my work at the end of the year. So I had to keep in mind making certain number of things and all that. But at the same time, it interested me to actually imagine. When just before all that in 1981-82, there was entire year of India Festival in UK. And that made me aware of lots of things actually which interested me about Indian art and everything. And there were numerous exhibitions and talks and films and dance and I made a set of guardians. The guardians, I made them all up basically. Something from Chinese guardians, something from Roman or Greek chimera, and then some things from Egyptian things, something from Japanese things, depends,
I love that series of yours. To me, that's some of your most powerful work.
So I made a guardian of death, I made guardian of war, I made guardian of water, I made guardian of treasure, So they represented different directions. So I just thought they could be interesting to be kept in a gallery space where they are facing the onlooker, and when the onlooker is in the middle, how do they feel? How would I feel if I saw 4 guardians just looking at me? Because their scale is such, they're sitting on the floor, just looking at people.
So this is running long. I don't want it to get too long, but I just want to say you're represented by Sakshi Gallery in Mumbai.
Sakshi.
You've had exhibitions there.
I had exhibitions there. then also Akara art,
Akara art. Okay.
and there are some works with Groner Gallery.
In UK, in London.
UK, London.
Grosvenor in London.
Yeah.
You also represents you, correct? That's a good gallery that you're in. Very good. Okay, thank you, Dhruva, very much for this. And I hate to cut this short, but I think we should, otherwise we just are going to get cut off pretty soon by my camera. And we'll let you give a little tour of your studio now, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is Evil O. Please like and subscribe. It keeps the channel going. Thank you, and goodbye. Oh my God. So this is the back room. This is the back room of Dhruva Kamar's studio in his home. I'm gonna have to sneak through here. Oh, God. Show us some things. Wow. What do we have here? Look at all of your sculptures up here. You want to point some of these out and talk about them, Dhruva?
This is one of the early study of Hanuman.
That's the Hanuman. Oh, I've seen those hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
Right, I've seen those hanging on the wall.
It's a bit heavier. Then this is Sower.
Sower, this is the person who's planting. Was this like a maquette that you did?
Well, the idea is to make it larger. But I haven't made it bigger than about 4 feet.
Okay. I really like this one a lot. There's a lot of, especially with the whole protest about the farming protests and everything that's going on now, that
Because the other
fits so
pieces
well.
are lying in the uneven place.
And what we have up here, some reclining women.
Yes.
Yeah.
I began work on these things from 2004 onwards. Every time trying to see how to achieve the best possible forms.
And tell us about this one. This one I see a lot. What's the story that that's that wonderful use of negative space?
It is the simple most construction. It is stable and very engaging for me for such a long time. Yes.
I like it because it seems like this woman has just burst out of her confines and she's become
but
free.
The thing is, it is the cutout, the negative space cutout is a male figure.
It's a male figure. Oh, I never noticed that.
That's the whole.
So it's a female figure that's escaping from a male figure.
It's not.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's not the same.
I never really noticed that. I always
the
thought it
same
was
thing.
a
No, it's not
woman.
the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
No. See, there's a male there.
Oh, yeah. And there's female. So you're unifying the male and female
That's the
both.
idea, because I don't know if it can, the two can be together in
Right.
a better possible way ever I can think of it.
Right.
This is the best I can do it.
And what's this on your table? This is the same, but you're using it as a table.
Yes, thought of turning it into a table or something. After having made that, I just thought maybe put glass over it, so that was it.
Right. And what's this up here? Is this a maquette? Is this also out of steel?
Yes,
This is also steel, but it's painted very specially with
yes.
not the normal highly graphic paint like you use there. It's much more soft and blended.
In for some works I use industrial paint or the car paint, with the paint they use for motorcycles and automobiles.
Right. Wow, this is such an interesting space. And what's this, a grinder? This is your grinder.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Not much use.
And I love this little cabinet here. Look at that. What's the story on this cabinet? It's all sorts of little things.
I made a box, made this box to put little things in there. But then it was because of this thing I made that. This is the original little box with things in
This one.
it. So like this is a very small model of a very large stone sculpture in Cardiff. Then there will be some. This is a little study for the big work in Birmingham. Then,
Oh, this is the one of the big work that's in the fountain in Birmingham. That's huge in Birmingham. That's a huge
there
sculpture.
are pieces which are mine and
Where's Trupti? This is your wife? Okay. And that's the Trupti's also. And you have a tiny little coconut. Oh, yeah.
It's like a cylinder, sphere, a cone, and cube and all that.
Right.
So then there are some things from British Museum.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad the British Museum gave something back.
Study like that.
Yeah, there
There
we
are things
go.
like that,
Reclining nude. I love this tota.
Then there's a little chola bronze here and a tiny.
So shall we go to the dining room and then I'll turn it off? I want to show what your wife has prepared. My God. Come, Dhruva. So this is in Dhruva's house. This is where we just had our interview. It's a beautiful house. My God. Some beautiful sculptures here. And there's a beautiful garden, but we won't go out there. So it's quite something. Such a beautiful home. And look at this. What is this? It's like a Nandi.
I call it sitting bull.
You call it sitting bull?
Sitting bull.
Oh, okay, I gotta catch your wife. Trupti,
Hello.
come and say hello.
This is Trupti's work here.
Hi.
This is Dhruva Kumar Mystery's wife, Trupti.
Hello. How are you?
How are you? Which one is your work? Can I show your work?
Yes, I've got one work out.
This is your work?
Relief of that. And then the large ornament.
I work largely in earth and clay and ceramic.
Well, I can see why you two connected on a visual level also.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Well, we were like-minded in college, so
Yeah.
it was
Looks,
different but like-minded.
looks like you made a nice table setting for lunch, so
Yes.
I'm gonna off this. Do you have something else to show us, Dhruva Kumar?
And then there's the Trupti's work.
Where else? This? Ah, okay. It's big. And this is looking out into the garden, which is so beautiful that we won't go out there. Okay, thank you, Dhruva Kumar Mystery. Thank you for the interview. It'll appear later on Evilo. Bye.